After playing Path to Nowhere and Nikke over the course of the last few months, I thought that it would be a little while, I guess, before I saw a game of equal caliber released. Path to Nowhere and Nikke, while both games that have their flaws, turned out to have absolutely enthralling narratives, fun gameplay, gorgeous graphics, and a top-tier voice cast. Limbus Company doesn't compare on all fronts, but over the last 2 days of playing has pleasantly surprised me as a newcomer to the much larger intellectual property that this is a part of. And while I do plan on covering Limbus Company in a much more dedicated form as part of my Worst Gacha Ever series, which you can find a link to in the description in the pinned comment below, I thought I would go ahead here and give my thoughts and impressions of the game so far, after investing several hours into it over the course of the last 2 days. Note, my opinion of the game might change by any margin, substantial or marginal, depending on the difficulty spike, the free-to-play friendliness, the content, and accessibility over time. I also want to take a moment here to thank all of our incredible patrons over on Patreon. You guys allow me to keep doing dumb videos like these, and I truly, deeply appreciate your support. Also, if you have a moment here, follow me over on Twitch. I stream these gacha games specifically over there every weekend. So, I start out the game, and within seconds realize that the combat tips are in Korean. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that is helpful to Korean players, but as someone that cannot read Korean, I feel like it's the equivalent of licking ice cream wrapped in plastic. It could taste great, but I can't taste it. I was then introduced to some of the characters in the tutorial of the game, and hear me out, typically, I wouldn't skip story. I love story in my games, but I hate tutorials. I feel like if I've played one game, I have played many of them. Very rarely are they such a departure from the norm where I'm required to have my hand held. So I attempted to skip the tutorial, and it worked. I was baffled. Normally you can't actually skip tutorials. Normally you're stuck following a sequence of missions, cutscenes, and being told how to click a skill, how to forward a conversation. It's mind-numbingly arduous, but that just really wasn't the case in Limbus Company. Immediately, I thought two different things. Holy crap, I just skipped the intro, and holy crap, I didn't do the tutorial and am now fully capable of jumping directly into the game. This was very life-changing. A quality of life feature that I feel like every gacha game should have. It was freeing. I never felt so alive. I then cycled through my characters, not really understanding what I was doing. This was a direct consequence of skipping the tutorial, but that is, of course, a part of the learning process. I'd later learn how and what everything meant. After fiddling around in menus, I decided it was time to begin tackling missions in the first chapter. Granted, I had no idea where chapters were located, but after several minutes, I departed. Now, the combat in Limbus Company is very interesting and takes multiple forms, the first of which I'll go over right now. On the one hand, the game utilizes more or less a turn-based combat system. You select your abilities towards the bottom of the screen and attempt to chain together the same affinity, green with green, blue with blue. Every additional chain increases your damage exponentially, also introducing status effects the higher the chain gets. Your characters begin moving horizontally along with the enemies, with little numbers representing HP in red towards the bottom left of each character. The goal is to naturally deplete the HP of your enemies, emerging victorious and moving on to the next encounter. The combat itself is very bloody and very gory, which is something that I can really deeply appreciate. Like, I love lighter gacha games like Blue Archive, like Azure Lane, don't get me wrong, but something about the darker, more gritty nature of games like this and Path to Nowhere just really attracts me to them. I don't know if that's because I messed up or not. After playing for about 45 minutes, I realized there was one thing I really hated about this game, and it was the same thing that I hated about Nikke. It has absolutely horrendous loading screen times. I feel like loading screens would last upwards of 20 seconds at times. One common sentiment that I did see echoed online in various different communities was that the game was filled with lag, which I personally didn't see. Sure, I have the latest iPhone, but I really felt no lag at all. My phone definitely overheated, and I regret not playing it on PC via Steam, but I more or less played it without issue. I also didn't have any issues where it crashed, which is another issue I saw a lot of people having online. After about an hour, I also realized that I really liked some of the characters in this game, like Charon. I feel like she's my spirit animal.
감이지. 카룬의 감. 네? 분홍머리. 카룬 앞을 이상한 종이로 막는 이유가 뭐야? 계속 이상한 방향으로 가니까 그렇죠. 이 지도를 마음이 향하는 곳.
Now, at this point, I decided it was time to pull for some husbandos and waifus. There were, at the time of recording, 3 different banners available: the Orientation banner, the Standard banner, and the Limited banner. The Orientation banner guaranteed you obtain a 3-star hero after 20 pulls, which were essentially free given the currency you're given. The Standard banner is about what you'd expect, and the Limited banner, well, I feel like this is all really rather self-explanatory. The Limited banner is a banner that is limited. Ultimately, I ended up obtaining a few different 3-star characters, which was more than I had anticipated. Whoops, my previous recording just finished. Yeah, that's why you guys watch this channel, right? For professionally recorded and equally as professionally edited content like this. Seriously, what are you guys still doing here? Learning how the varied rarity of characters function did take me a little bit of time, but that's because I'm an idiot and learning new things like this is very difficult for me. Also, paying attention to where things are located is also equally as difficult for me. I didn't know that characters had 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star variants and you were required to manually equip their more powerful, higher rarity forms. I learned this after about a half hour of wondering where my 3 stars went and coming to the sad realization that the 3-star characters that I just obtained ended up being thrust into the void. P.S. Did I mention that I absolutely love Charon?
카룬은 2가지 방향만 알아. 메피의 앞쪽과 뒤쪽.
So, I spent the next half hour to an hour slowly moving through the story and completing additional missions throughout Chapter 1. Combat was relatively easy and straightforward. My ability window would expand the longer the battle went on. There were a number of turns per wave and several waves per encounter. I understood the basics of combat and how everything related to one another. What I was not prepared for was 111. This was entirely different to anything else in the game thus far. This was referred to as a dungeon, and while it wasn't difficult necessarily to discern how to operate it, there were a number of different encounters that I could choose from, each with their own set of monsters and win conditions. It wasn't until I was introduced to abnormalities and their parts that I kinda hit a wall. I think I spent the next several minutes clicking through everything I could, trying to figure out what I was missing. It told me that I had to drag a certain ability to my center and had an arrow that was located directly above the head of an enemy. This would indicate to me that I was required to click the enemy, right? Because that's what I thought. So I would click the enemy, I would then click a center, the screen would start zooming in and zooming out and spinning around uncontrollably. I would then click the enemy some more. This continued, admittedly, for like 3 minutes to no avail. I thought I was bugged. I thought there was a glitch. Maybe I was caught in some kind of lag spike or something, but everything was responding without issue, which meant that I was just too stupid to comprehend what was going on. I knew I'd overlooked something, and with no way of accessing a help tool, I closed the game and decided to attempt it from the beginning once more. For those of you as dumb as I am, all you need to do is manually select your ability at the bottom of the screen and then select an enemy with that ability. You need to do this for all 5 abilities from what I could tell. Things got easier, a lot easier then, but at the same time the encounters themselves continued to get progressively more difficult. And in an effort to help me out, to present me with new ways of ascending beyond my current limitations, Limbus Company gave me some incredibly handy tips. If only I could read it. Maybe they contained the secrets to world domination, how to last longer than 60 seconds, who knows, the options are limitless. After reaching the checkpoint, I ended day 2 and decided, since I also have to record an Innocence, this would be a solid point to stop for a more introductory early impression of the game. And I am admittedly having a blast. Seriously, this game is gorgeous. The narrative is enthralling. I wish the voiceovers were in English, but that isn't really like a make or break feature for me. I cannot wait to continue playing this and doing a more in-depth look in the next week or two as part of my Worst Gacha Ever series, so be on the lookout for that, or alternatively just go ahead and click it on screen right now since it's technically possible to. Or you can go ahead and click the other video on screen right now to find a list of every new gacha game releasing this month in March 2023.